Hello and good afternoon. This is Founder Leroon from Fantasy Grounds College. I'm going to take a look at the newer released DnD Essentials Kit. I'm going to look over the main modules, but also the 3 new ones that were released the other day on Smiteworks. Rob 2e converted these for Smiteworks on behalf of Wizards of the Coast. So these are the 3 additional modules that come with the Essentials Kit. They are essentially an expansion to the Icespire Peak series. They take place in the same region. So I'm going to load up some products and some maps and even some third-party stuff to kind of round out that type of setting. So if you have any questions, just PM me in Discord or leave them in the chat and I will try to get back to you on it. But my main focus here is going to be to show you guys how this stuff looks, how to load it, that sort of thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is, since I'm going to be dealing with ice and that sort of thing, I think I want to change the lighting in the overall scheme of things. So I found an Rgb code, which is the color code for colors, and it determines, which yellow, green, blue, and those sort of things. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I pre-made this, but all you have to do is do /lighting. It's supposed to be in lowercase. And then you put in your RGB value. So this number, AF5, whatever, this pound, A5F2F3, is considered ice blue. And I got that from the internet. So if I hit enter, it will change the background to like a light ice blue. The next thing I'm going to do is theme the dice here. They look a little bit too earthy, so I'm going to change the dice. So I'm going to lighten those up a little bit to be more themed with what we're doing here. And I think since that's so light, I'm going to change the text black. That's pretty cool. There we go. So there's kind of a light bluish. I want a little bit more blue, I think. There we go. Yeah. I like blue. My favorite color. Okay. So that's that. So I've kind of got this ice theme going on here. I'm also going to load the DnD Essentials Kit. So I'm going to go into my modules, and I want to explore, so I'm going to go ahead and make all these banners show instead of just the DM ones. So I clicked all, and that made all these show up. That way I have access to everything. And now I'm going to load up some themed modules and some supplements to kind of get this overall feel going to take place in Phandalin and the Sword Mountains. So let's see. I'm going to go to modules, and I'm going to do a search there. I'm going to just type Kit. And here is the DnD Essentials Kit Rulebook. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in Essential. Okay, how about I'm going to put Icespire Peak. Okay, so here's Dragons of Icespire Peak. So another module that was put out by AAW Games, and this is called Crack Monastery. Now, I probably won't use it, but I might use it to supplement some of these adventures that I have taking place in and around the Sword Mountains. So I'll go ahead and load that just for kicks and giggles. And then I can also search by author. So if I do wizards, I should be able to locate all the other different supplements. So I have Icespire Peak. I have the DnD Essentials. I might as well load up the monster manual. Player's handbook. Probably the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. That way I have a good map of the region and some of the supplemental information. And here's Divine Contention. That's one of the extra modules that Rob converted. Dragon's Wake and Stormlord's Wrath. So those are the additional modules that were given to the public, and Rob converted it for Smiteworks for the Wizards of the Coast DnD Essentials Kit. So that should be a pretty good start. Now I'm going to load a couple map packs. So I got to make sure I delete my criteria. So some of my favorite maps are put out by Chris McDermott of Game of Tile Warehouse. So I'm going to load these. This is the Cutmere Shard pack, and this is the Shard Roads. And what these are modules that contain a whole bunch of kind of frost and ice space themed different map kits. So for instance, I'm in the library, and I'm going to look at the images and maps. And from here, you have this map selection panel. So if you have any spots in your campaign where you don't really have a battle map, or you're kind of bridging between two modules, this is perfect for that. And these are also themed for ice and snow. So some of these may or may not work with your campaign, but I think most of these would work well, especially when you're up in the higher altitudes. And this Cutmire Shard, let's see, that's the same one, is related to the Shard Road. So these are more maps, and there's some flip variants that are turned other ways, so you can utilize them differently. But there's caves and, you know, crossings over rivers and such. These would be perfect for a campaign. They even have a transitional one that goes from like a jungle to the snow, so you can kind of use that. There's a whole bunch of options here. There's a frozen pond. There's some crystal-like structures. There's roads, waterways. So there's even like a little keep, or like maybe a sacred temple. So this is some supplemental stuff that I've loaded here. The other thing I loaded that was supplemental to this was the Crack Monastery. Now, this isn't really directly related to the setting, but it does give you some options. So it has some NPCs, a wolf, grizzly bear. I mean, there's some really, you know, there's a white dragon even. I mean, he's pretty vicious. So, you know, there's a lot of things you can borrow from here that doesn't necessarily have to come from the official module. There's an ice basilisk. How cool is that? Yeah, that's really cool. So if you wanted a little bit different creature, there's an ice basilisk you can use. There's even some maps. So you have, you know, different artwork, and here's a player's map of the Cregg Monastery. So you can place this monastery in your setting if you want to. Even this whole adventure, if you go to the story, it tells you the background. So it tells you about these orcs that live in these northern crags, and, you know, it talks about the monastery. So you can easily plug this in to any setting. Here it talks about the white dragon, and there's a raid that's being taken place on this ice monastery. So this would be a really cool in-between adventure if you were going to do something like that. So that's the only reason I plugged it in there, because there's a lot of other assets and different things, little pieces that you can take out of it if you want. I loaded the Sword Coast Adventures Guide because this setting actually takes place there. And then I've loaded all of the adventures for the DnD Essentials Rulebook, and then here's the core rulebook. So technically, I have just about everything you need to run an adventure in the Forgotten Realms and close to the Phandalin region. And if I really wanted to, I can also load Lost Mine. So I might do that for a reference, because a lot of the storyline ties into that city or that town. So I'll go ahead and load Lost Mine. And just in case, I got some pre-gens I'm going to load. So there we go. So now we got all these ice kind of related things. And I'm going to go through my modules one more time, and I'm going to see if there's any snow or ice related stuff. So there's snow. Nope, nothing like that. Okay, I did a keyword search for ice, and I only see the ones that I just added, so really not too much more to add. I do have some custom-made tokens. Now I had these commissioned, but I'll go ahead and show these. Are really nice. They are very nicely illustrated, and I think they're worth showing. So definitely going to show these. These are by Bernardo Hasselman. As a matter of fact, we're going to have him on our All Things Fantasy Ground show coming up. So if you guys want to see his work, then you would definitely be really inspired by his artwork. It's just fantastic. So let's see. So I have some Ice World is what I call it. I'm going to go ahead and expand this a little bit more. You can see. And these have all sorts of Arctic looking creatures. Now not all of them are Arctic, but there's quite a few here that are themed for cold environment. So we have like these hunters that have these cloaks and clothing on. We have these ice themed characters. We have golems and elementals. We have a lich that's made of ice. We have an ice elf or snow elf, if you want to call it that. Right here is a snow elf, and here's an ice elf. And then there's a frost elf also, and he's right here. And they all kind of have a light bluish or dark blue skin. We have an ice pixie, ice mephit. There's even this ice drake. And there is an ice dragon, which is really cool as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start checking out this module, kind of opening it up, see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to the story entry, and I'm going to take a look at Sleeping Dragon's Wake. So this is table of contents. So this talks about the town of Leyland. Here's... Wow, this is a 10th level module where... Wow, it's basically you're going to be fighting a head-on encounter, or maybe just a brush with death. But it looks like there's going to be some kind of... what is it? A kind of confrontation with a dragon. Let's see. Here's the creature. Let's take a look at that. There's some Sahuagins. Yeah. So this is a Gargantuan dragon. So this thing is huge. I mean, it's got like 300 hit points. What kind of dragon is it? It can breathe air and water. Huh. Very cool. This is a huge dragon. Yeah, he has his innate spells and he has all these. That's cool. So this must be some giant thing that lives up in this region. Wow. I don't think I'd want to tangle with this guy. But nonetheless, these add all of the different modules that came from the Essentials Kit. So you have all kinds of different avenues and different ways that you can combine adventures. So technically you can run everything you want from Phandalin, start with Lost Mine of Phandelver, and then also add on these adventures that are in the region. So I'm pretty sure there's some sort of map here, so I'm going to pull that up. So here's the rule book. Let's see if they provide any maps in here. Yeah, I'd imagine it's in the adventure. So these are just pictures of different things that come in the rule book. So the main adventure, the first one is the Icespire Peak. It's called Dragon of Icespire Peak. And there are a bunch of maps, so let's take a look at different maps. So there's different quest maps and images. Okay, so here's the Dragon Barrow. Wow, it's a pretty big map. So this is one of the locations. And then you have, let's see, Icespire, Hold. There's a hunting lodge. I want to find some creature. I want to see a lair, like an ice creature lair or something like that. Here's Mountain Toe. Let's see what that is. Yeah, see, that's just a mine that exists on the edge of the mountains. There's a hunting lodge. There we go. So that's a little bit more ice themed. So you could have like an encounter on this trail on the way up there. Or, you know, you could devise something to challenge your players. But I'm going to shrink this. This is really big. There we go. So this is a really big map for Fantasy Grounds. I know they're kind of limited as to what they get from Wizards of the Coast, but I would probably have broken this up into 4 if I was the one converting it, but it's kind of hard to match everything up too, so kudos to the people who convert these. So I'm going to resize and vertical adjust. So that's pretty much the whole map. So it looks like there's a protective element here and a bridge that goes across, and then here's the main keep. This is the barracks where the orcs live. It's pretty cool looking. There's the Sword Coast players map. This is what I was looking for earlier. So again, I'm going to right click on it and click small size. And stretch it out so we can see it a little bit more. So here's all the adventures for Axholm, Leland. This is Gnome Guard. Looks like there's the Toe Gold Mine. There's Icespire Hold. So Cryovane the dragon lives there. And this is designed for characters of 6th level. So lower level can defeat the dragon if they're cunning and cautious. So right after Phandelver or Phandalin, you can probably run those characters up into something like that, and you can adjust it accordingly. Because I know that the dragon here isn't as powerful as most dragons. He's fairly young. He doesn't really have any spells. He's just like a big brute. And I think that the lore behind it is more interesting. He's actually the offspring of some of the other white dragons that had appeared in earlier editions of Forgotten Realms products. So he was actually related somehow and enslaved by the frost giants, and his parents or his relatives went through the same thing. And when I was doing my research on the dragons, the white dragons in particular in the north, there are at least a half a dozen different named dragons that are all somehow interconnected or related, and they've appeared in products over the years. So the one that Drist had defeated during the Crystal Shard series, that dragon that had Icing Death, was somehow related or a mate to one of the other dragons in another adventure. So it's kind of cool that the dragons kind of have their own hierarchy and family tree. And it tells you, if you do some research online, like who's what and which dragons were living in what region, how they fit into the storyline, those sort of things. And you can almost make like a family tree. It's really cool. So I think I'm going to make a little research paper on that and write down some names and locations and timelines and try to piece that together and maybe make some sort of history so that it would inspire storytelling and lore and make more sense of things like the dragon cult. Like maybe that was something that they had uncovered, or perhaps you are an adventurer who's out and about and you come across an ancient artifact that was created during the time when these dragons were more prolific. So it looks like dragons as a whole are a little bit on the decline, but they're still very formidable and they are still very powerful. So it kind of hints that at one time they were much more active and there was a lot more of them. And they even state some battles that had occurred throughout history. I guess the host tower in Luskan had received an attack by a bunch of dragons. Some kind of thing, storyline went down there and they had a whole bunch of dragons unleashed on the host tower. So that might have been one of the things that had destroyed it. There's all kinds of really good lore if you go back and kind of piece it together. So I think I'm going to take a break. I just wanted to take a look at some of this material. There is some new modules on the store now for the Fantasy Grounds store and on Steam, and these would be available for download and purchase. I think they're like $4 a piece, and you'll get a couple dollars off if you already own everything. Definitely look into these for expanding your Essentials Kit universe, and also to add on or placate the Blossom Mine and Phandelver module. So if you started there and you ended up like around 6th or 7th level, this would definitely be worth getting so you can continue those adventures. And you don't have to go too far. I mean, it's basically right in the back door of Phandalin. So it's a really good approach by Wizards of the Coast to keep everything kind of localized. I mean, you do spread out a little bit, but you're still in the basic same areas. So again, here are some maps by Chris, Game Tile Warehouse. So if you're up in the mountains and you need a decent map, you pull up something like this, which has forests and trails. I think these look really nice. I'm going to scale this and give it a grid just to see what it looks like. So I'm going to hit the layers, grid, and I'm going to drag this and put it in place here and take a look at, see how the tokens look. So I'm going to take some of my tokens here. The ones I had commissioned, I'll take a couple of them. Alright, so here is like a hunter type. Another hunter type. There's a Yeti. We'll say they have a pet sabertooth. And maybe they have a priestess or a wizard. So let me find her. There she goes. That's pretty cool. Those look really good with the background. And then I'm going to put a nasty little dragon up here. So here we go. One of my favorites. So this dragon could essentially be this big. So that's a really cool looking picture there. That's almost worthy of a screenshot. Let's take a look at that in full screen. Yeah. That is nifty. So yeah, I like the way that looks. I think that this would do well. We're in a campaign. The party has come up, you know, next to this dragon. Maybe sitting up here on top of this cliff, looking down at them. Then all you'd have to do is stat these guys, you know, get some character sheets going, get a stat block for him, kind of piece it all together, maybe use the tokens, and then put it into the lore of your story. Doesn't necessarily have to kill them, you can warn them or kind of scare them. Maybe blast them with the cone of ice and then take off. And it doesn't have to be a deadly encounter. It could also be a role-playing encounter. Maybe he warns them not to go any further, or he tells them there's another dragon in the area that's much more hostile and worse. Maybe he's at odds with a gold dragon or something. So there's all kinds of things you can do with Fantasy Grounds and with your imagination. So it's pretty cool. So anyways, thanks for your time. Again, I was looking at the Dragon of Icespire Peak, Divine Contention, Sleeping Dragon's Wake, Stormlord's Wrath, and the DnD Essentials Kit. Then I also loaded up some map packs, Sword Coast Adventures Guide, and some other supplemental materials to kind of go along with it. I made a button so I can change the background theme. So right now, the theme is kind of an ice blue. So I changed this back to the standard daytime. I took the command right/lighting with a space, and then I put the RGB value, and then I made a shortcut of it. So now when they go up to the ice peaks, they'll have this bluish background. So that's just a way to kind of change the mood up a little bit and make things a little bit more themed. I also changed the color of my dice to be kind of an ice blue look. So there's all kinds of things you can do to enhance your campaign to make it a little less predictable and a little less boring. And also, if you haven't heard already, I have also chose a strange selection of ice sounds that are in the background. So I will leave you with that. Take care, everybody.